Starting right now, episode 1, season 4, Still Here podcast with Jose Cruz. I'm Monty Torres, proud to be here with him. We're going to talk about everything from what's happening right now to what's coming and to what you should do to be ready for it, including salvation through Jesus Christ. Join us starting right now.
We got Monty Torres here, sir. How are you doing?
Happy to be here, Jose.
Man, I know we're doing a little pre-warm-up, pre-talk, and kind of give my input on you, man. It's just back in the day, because I consider you, like the GOAT of the 10 o'clock evening news here in Central Valley, because you think about 10 o'clock news, Monty Torres.
I appreciate that. I like that. I hope everybody thinks that way. But
No, there's a lot of people that got left.
It has been a little while. I've been on there 17 years now.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Man, that's crazy. It seems like, just times fly,
I know.
We're in that generation, man. It's like news was just on TV, but now news is everywhere. To see that transition, because again, when I first started, we were on DVC tapes. Photogging.
Yes.
And there was no hashtag nothing. There was just straight up.
Yeah.
Man.
And then this whole new world comes out during that period of time with all the podcasting and the, social media is exploding, and all that stuff. So, but you certainly made your way with it, with your setup here and the podcast. This is awesome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. It took some time, It's like a lot of things in life, man. We definitely want to, just keep moving forward and grow, man. And so, but I'm glad you're taking the time on the weekend to come out, man. Seriously.
Happy to do it anyway, just to catch up with you.
Yes, sir. Let's get to know you, because I know you don't really, like you said, you didn't know much about podcasting. You just kind of, you live your life, man. You're not a very heavy social media guy, It's like,
I try to be. I try to learn it, and try to do it. Maybe after this I'll get some more tips from you.
Yeah.
But I try to catch on with it. These are, like you said, these are changes, and sometimes you're juggling some things, and you say, oh, how do I fit this one in here, and add that to what I'm keeping in the air. On top of that, you may remember I have 6 kids.
Yeah, you do.
They're not small anymore. They've all grown up. My youngest is 21 years old. So I interact and try to be involved with them, their lives, and I have 2 grandkids now too.
Oh, wow.
So between that and my mom came to live with me at my home here in Fresno.
Okay.
Which I get the honor and privilege of taking care of her. She's 80. She'll be 87 this year.
Wow.
No, she'll be 88 this year.
That's awesome.
So it's nice to have her here and in good health, and to have this time with her here with me and my wife. Mm-hmm. So I'm always open to learning new things and trying more. In fact, I am doing something new. As of the last year or so, I became a producer of the station too. I produce.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, but I'm just a fill-in producer. Like if our producer's out on vacation or a producer's out sick, I'll produce for 10 o'clock news. Or, as you know, we do another newscast, the Omaha show for our Omaha sister station.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like just last night, I produced that, then anchored that.
Nice.
So, I pick up new things here where I can, but there's always more than I can absorb all at once.
Yeah, it's crazy because this whole world of social media is evolving just every day. There's not one thing where it's just, all right, this is the staple. No, man.
So it's like every time I turn around, there's a new platform. Mm-hmm. It's Facebook is old news, and Instagram and all that. Then there's Snapchat, TikTok, this, everything. It's hard to keep up with all of those for me.
It is, same here, because I'm the old school generation too, man. I'm 42, and still got some years, still got time, man. But it's like these young kids, like my daughter, obviously on camera, shout out wifey here too, and she learns so much. She's an artist, so she's already doing artist time lapse, and she posted it one time. We bought her an iPad, so she just picked. I didn't even have to show her, and it's like something that we couldn't do a long time ago, even before. It's like she did it when she was like 12, 13 years old. I'm like,
the talent.
Yeah, and so now, staying ahead, trying to catch up on the whole fad of social media, is really why I wanted to bring you on too, man. Because when you post, there's a lot of cool things that you post, spiritual, encouraging, information, But before we get into that, man, let's kind of get into your beginning story. Because I know growing up, a lot of people just see Monty Torres on TV, Then they see you out and about, events, public, just life, I don't want to get too detailed.
I laugh when you say this because I can remember even a few years back being at a store and someone telling me, wow, I grew up watching you. And I said to myself, wow, have I been here that long? But I've heard it more than once, you know. And again, I'm honored that it's that way. But it just makes you realize how quickly time passes, how people see time, and how people see you from all that time passing.
I was like 20, 30 pounds lighter. You know?
We were also, remember back then when you were there too, we were doing that political show.
Yeah.
Which was just fun to do. It was the heavy political news of the day. We did it twice. And they syndicated that, and that was a lot of fun too. That was a new adventure for us at that time.
I remember that. You know, getting into like your story, man. You know, obviously I don't want like, you know, bank account numbers, so we're not getting that deep, but just kind of like
quite much there, but
you know, we'll kind of get like the origin, man. Kind of like how you got in, you know, where you grew up, how, you know, like when you went to school, kind of what made you get into news? Was news like your first thought, or you know, what you know? Let's get to know you, man.
Wasn't my first thought. I grew up in Southern California.
Okay.
My dad was born in the Philippines, and his mother was from Spain. And they moved when he was 3 months old to Hawaii, where he and his subsequent 5 younger sisters were born. And he grew up there most of his life. My mom was born in Ohio, and then went to Hawaii and then the Philippines with her stepfather and her mother, and where they were hired by the USO to do USO shows for the US military and such. So my dad and mom met on a boat when she was like 13 years old, became pen pals and stuff like that, and he went on to come back from the Philippines to go and take her to her senior prom, and they ended up getting married, and then moved to LA. My dad went 2 years in the US Army, and then when he came back, he set up shop, became an attorney in the LA area, where most of my aunts and uncles and cousins, big clan cousins. So I grew up with multiple layers of culture, and then there's Filipino and Spanish and Mexican from the neighbors and all, and my wife and her family, and then also there's that overlay of Hawaiian from my dad and his family growing up there. So like every family party was kind of like a luau, and it was a real nice time to have so many cousins to hang out with. And it was just like a regular Latino family, you know.
Yeah.
But it was really nice to have that. And then I went to school down there, Catholic grade school and high school. Growing up, you know, I can almost still remember some of the Latin terms from the old mass. But and then I didn't always want to do this. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer, like he was. But I always noticed that when my dad would come home at night, he'd always take his aspirins from the day at work and having his own firm. And I respect the law a great deal, but I also noticed that oftentimes you're kind of like arguing every day for that line of work with insurance adjusters or with other attorneys and so on, and that can wear on you. My younger brother became a lawyer, and that's exactly what I've heard from him, and that's not what I wanted in that respect. So I decided upon this field of work when I took a weekend class at UCLA called The Art of the Interview, and it was a weekend class that was part of the UCLA Extension program because they didn't have a broadcast journalism program. So as a result of that class, we would go to a local TV station. KCOP was the station, and we did some interviews there. And the teacher of the class liked me so well that they said, we want to put you on our show. It was a weekend community affairs show in LA.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I did that for 3 years. And then doing that, I said, you know, I like this, but I think I'd rather get full-time into news if I'm going to do something like TV rather than community affairs interview. And so that's when I went back and took another year's worth of classes at UCLA. And they were all broadcast journalism classes. And UCLA Extension calls it comparable to a master's program. I think it's more like a bachelor's program. But I did that on top of what I'd previously done, and then started the news trek where I send then there used to be big 3/4-inch tapes.
Yeah,
set up my tapes. Yeah, and got my first job in Palm Springs. Worked there not very long. I was only actually there 6 months. Okay. And then I was hired by Roger Gadley. Did you ever meet Roger Gadley?
Yeah,
okay, he was there when you were there. Roger Gadley was the news director here in Fresno. I came here in '96 as a reporter, early on, very early reporter, and was here about a little less than a year. Then I got my first full-time anchor gig in Florida at Fort Myers, the NBC affiliate in Fort Myers, Naples, Florida. After that, they hired me as the main anchor for the Fox station, the launch of the Fox station, up in WXMI, that's Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we started their first 10 o'clock news, and did that for about 2 years until I got hired in Raleigh, North Carolina by what was then the NBC O&O. And I was there for 5 years.
Okay.
And then this came about. By that time, I had been away from home, mainly on the East Coast, for about 10 years or so. Hadn't seen most of my family, particularly my parents, as they were getting older. And so, I mean, me and my family, we made this, an important point, like we always do, of prayer. We would like to get back home, like to see our family while we still have time. How do we do that? And then everything fell into place, and that's when Roger called and offered me this opportunity.
Yeah, what year was that?
That was I came back in 2006.
Okay, yeah. See, that's when I got hired as a photog.
So we started right about the same time.
We did. Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is parallel there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's cool because I remember walking in, man. Young. I'm 22. How old was that, Laura? 25. 24, 25, man. And I'm like, and that was my first real job. I got kicked out of high school. Long story short, like everybody's heard this story 1,000 times, man. But I got kicked out of high school, and I was volunteering at a church. Not volunteering. I was actually sentenced to community service. Mm-hmm. So they ended up using me on the camera because their guy didn't show up, and so I had some experience. I had an eye for it, and then when it finally, I think when I was ready, because it all stuck with me, I was like, let me just apply. I heard Channel 24 was hiring. They didn't hire me. Because I had two last names. My mom sold me my brother's identity back in the day, and we didn't know until, my actual last name is Jose Manzano. I've been going like that up until 24 years old. When I found out my actual legal name is Jose Manzano Cruz. So my middle name was my last name. And
I see.
So when I went to...
I got a name story to tell you, too, later on after this.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But then when I went to 26, I ended up using Jose Cruz. And then you remember Jim Pyers?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I ran into him a couple months ago.
Oh, I haven't seen him in ages.
At my bank. And man, that's an awesome story. Because I'll tell you this. Because when I went, and I'll give you kind of like the quick version, man. Because this is kind of like an all, come back together full circle. Is I got hired. When I went there for a job interview, there was 5 other dudes there, man. They were swooped up, nice suit. They went to college. They had the degree. Me, I was no diploma, no experience, but I had zero to anything on my resume. Bought this big old shirt at Walmart because I didn't know how to dress in a tie, man. From the hood, man. So I talked to Jim, and I'm the first guy to interview, and I told him I had no experience, and I basically told him, look, Jim, and this is why Jim changed my life. Then, and when I ran into him, I told him all this, but I told him why he should hire me. I was like, you hire me, man, because I'm a fresh slate, man. I'm young, I learn quick, and things I've been doing now with these churches, I've been volunteering. That's what I'm volunteering at. Mm-hmm. Man, I pick up quick, and these guys that they're more qualified than I'll ever be, but they're taught a certain way that probably does not reflect KMPH and your guys' vibe. So you guys show me that, I'll give you that.
That's some good persistence and heart there to go take up like that and go do that.
Yeah,
and it worked.
It worked. So long story short, man, he hired me that Friday. Then that Friday evening, he called us, Mr. Cruz. I was like, what's up, Jim? Because that's how we talk. I was talking, what's up, Jim? He's like, hey, man, how do you feel about starting Monday? Work on KMPH 526. I'll be there, bro. So 3 months later, he called. I'm there working. We cross paths because I'm night side. He works obviously during the day, man. And he's like, we're crossing paths in the parking lot. He's like, Cruz, get over here, man. Let me tell you something. And he told me why he hired me, man. He's like, because you're memorable, man. He says your confidence and your belief in yourself, man. He says those guys probably believe in themselves, but you stood out the most. And and I think that's kind of where my itch came from, creativity.
That's awesome.
Because of being around you guys, man, when I walked in, I'm like, this Monty Torres. You get all these young guys that, see this world and,
excuse me, but I laugh every time I hear that from it's just.
Well, I mean, I feel like.
And I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I feel like that's the good side of you. A lot of people don't know because it's like people think, oh, he's on, Famous in Fresno. It goes to his head. He's not. You're not like this. Kopi, you two are my top boys, man. It's not like, oh, how's Monty? How's Kopi? Every time someone asks, I was like, those guys are, if not realer in person than they are on TV. That's my.
Kopi sets a fantastic example, and he has for a long time, long before I got here. So I look up to him too.
That's my boy, man. And so, yeah, and then when, hiring there, what kind of like was your process? Did you know like, hey, 10 o'clock anchor, that was like your goal?
I didn't even know. I wasn't really aware that there was an opening when that happened. I was getting ready to leave because my contract had come to an end in Raleigh. And I said, well, and I wanted to get back with the West Coast. I didn't know of anything open, but I knew Roger and I was always in good terms with him. So I called him and said, hey, and I know he knows a lot of news directors and people. I said, hey, anybody have an opening, then let me know about it. And he says, well, we do. I said, oh, really? He said, you want me to put you in? I said, okay, sure. And that is how it came about. But I always circle back to saying, I think everything is connected. And to those who take advantage of it, God's faithfulness and prayer. And we had been praying about it for months beforehand. We had no idea where we were going to get it. But to let you know how this all worked, I had no idea where I was going to end up. I had a house that I had bought out there and just sewed up so nice and tightly that everything, you kind of can see God's action sometimes, how neatly everything fits together perfectly. And I didn't do it. I didn't make it that way. The timing from when I was leaving to and coming out here, and when they gave me the moving allowance and wanted me to start, and it just all came together. Came together so well that my house sold before my next mortgage payment was due after I got out here. So I didn't have to pay for, I just got into a rental out here right first and a mortgage at the same time, which would have been really hard. It sold, it got that cleared up. Everything worked out perfectly. And then we were back here. And then I was able to start going down and seeing my parents and family down in LA. I would drive down there usually about twice a month, sometimes more, depending on what's going on. So that was really important. And I had 10 years with my dad before he died in 2016. I was able to be here for all of that. And he was in the hospital during his last weeks there. And so that was a great blessing. That's exactly what we asked for and wanted. And then now the privilege of having my mom live with me and taking care of her that way I think it's the way it should be. And I'm glad to have it that way too. Yeah. But it all came together perfectly. And it came together. The only thing I did beyond prayer was I called Roger and said, hey, you know of anything? And then boom, it all fell into place. Yeah, man.
That's weird. It's strange how things work out that way, man. It's like you didn't expect it. You
want to know another story?
Tell me, man.
Okay, let me tell you about this one. Talk about how things work. This is before I came back, about 2 years before I came back or so. I was moving from a house we had rented to the house we were going to buy. And I had no more time to move out. They were trying to sell that house. I had no more time. I asked for extra time. No, you can't. It's on the last weekend. I was dead tired from moving the whole week. Had some friends periodically, but still had a lot more to do. Spent a weekend all day out there moving boxes. I mean, you're talking about being tired to the bone. I was there. I had one friend with me. I'm in the garage looking around at all that has to be moved from the boxes against the back wall. He was against the back wall looking out. The garage door was open. I'm in front looking out at the street and looking back at him and saying, you know what? And then I knew what else had to be moved in the house. And saying, you know what? I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know who else to call. I don't know what else to get. I said, I'm just going to say prayer. I don't know why. What I had. This is a desperate prayer because I didn't know of anything. So I said a prayer, and when I opened my eyes, I was looking back at him. Like I said, he was in the back of the garage. The garage was open, and I look at him, and he's got his eyes are wide, and I like just gesture what, and he nods his head, and as I turn my head toward the street, just as I just finished, I hear from the street, "Hey, you need some help?" And I look out there, and I'm looking at this guy. He's a kind of husky guy, all dressed in white. And he says, "You need some help?" And then he says, "I'm a professional mover."
Oh, wow.
I mean, like instantaneous. And I just couldn't believe it. I stopped for a minute. I look at my friend, look back and say, "Yeah." He came in. He finished it in the next couple hours. I didn't lift anything after that.
Wow.
It was all done. I mean, people can say what they want, but nobody's going to tell me that's a coincidence.
Come on.
And things happen like that and can happen like that. And I was just very grateful that at that time I really needed some help. That prayer was answered.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true, man, because I agree. I am that way too, man. I mean, prayer has helped me and my family, man, in faith. And, when you don't even see it, when you don't, it's not even, you can't go based on feelings, man. Feelings come and go, man. Faith is,
right.
It's action.
You got feelings telling you you're forget it, you'll never make it, and you can't dwell on that. You got to go on and say, no, you know what? I'm not going to believe that.
Come on.
I'm going to just put my head down, say my prayers, and then see what comes and do my best. And I've had many great surprises from that, which reinforced exactly what you said. Don't be despondent. Don't be depressed. Don't think you've lost. Don't think there's always something there, and you can always ask for all the blessings that you need.
Yeah, no, it seems like because a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of my buddies, they're a lot of them are young guys, man, 25, 20, 30 years old. And they're struggling, and a lot of it is finances. Like, hey, man, I'm selling the TV. They're at that point where they start selling stuff, and it's like, look, man, you're in the toughest time of your life. It's probably not going to get any better anytime soon. And they're like, well, thanks, man. I'm trying to get encouraged. Well, here's the encouraging part. Go through this toughest time in your moment to know when you get through it, you look back and think, man, God, you brought me through that. I didn't cry, I didn't complain. I just took it for what it is. Whether it was my doing or someone or just happening to me in life, doesn't matter, man. And I think I've learned to take that approach, because again, what we've been through, we've been friends on social media forever. So you've seen what we went through, our posts and stuff, man. And I guarantee you, prayers, that you've prayed, and a lot of people, man, just, especially your prayers. It seems like God really answers your prayers. So when we leave, I want you to pray for this family.
I would always privileged to that,
And I think that's what I love about, you and your faith, man, because you see it on social media. You put the right scriptures on, and it's like, you've always been, are you Christian or what is it? I mean,
I'm Christian. I grew up, like I said, grew up going to Catholic grade school and high school, but I'm Christian in the sense that I like calling myself after the name of the one that is my Savior, who I believe is my Savior, Jesus Christ, Son of God, who died for my sins. I believe that fully, that I'm a sinner saved by grace. And it's interesting about the name of the Catholic Church, and I have no disrespect for the Catholic Church, but it's curious that it took upon itself the name Catholic, which is Latin for like universal, all-encompassing, which is a characteristic of the Church, but that's not why we were saved. And so I just prefer to call myself what the early Christians call themselves, followers of the way, when the way was, Christians. That's where Christians came from about that. So I relate to that and biblical Christianity. I believe in that 100%.
Now, in saying that then, man, because we live in a tough time now, I don't want to get too deep or, because you got life, you got your job, it's not like we're trying to save face, offend people. One thing I love about my podcast and stuff, I can say something, whatever I want, and, obviously you got a professional life you got to protect too, man. But, how do you separate like news and, your personal beliefs? Is it something that you like, well, I know I'm this, but I got to be.
I try not to separate them because, look, and you'll occasionally hear me on air when the occasion warrants. You hear me on social media. I think the most important news there is the news that God is real, Jesus Christ, His Son, paid the price for our sins, and because of that, we have the hope of eternal life, and we have always access to the throne of God in prayer. I've seen it active in my life, so I will not say that. Even as a news anchor, whatever, I won't not say that. Now, that doesn't mean I can shoehorn it into every story or anything like that.
Yeah.
But when the occasion arises where I can, I try not ever to shy away to put that out there and to say that. And frankly, with all that's going on in the world right now, and the news we report daily, from the threat of war, which could mushroom into nuclear war, from the threat of economic disaster, which is being talked about right now, with the bank failures going on in the United States right now, with the potential theorized, there are people who disagree, but the theorized collapse of the dollar, possibly because foreign nations are beginning to reject it as a source of trade and financial trade, payment.
Yep.
With the potential breaking out of war in other areas too. We have Iran continually threatening Israel threatening Iran too because of its nuclear program. We have China threatening Taiwan on a regular basis. We have all these conflicts potentially breaking out. We have next week what is being called a literal invasion down south. There's more to it than just migrants coming across. It's not that anymore, because I don't know who's exactly behind it, but someone's going out telling people to come all at once. And they're kind of like clearing out Central America and South America. There are large numbers of Chinese nationals, young men of military age. You see them, you see videos of the short haircuts and the young age coming across, not with wives and families. So there's a problem coming. There's a problem happening right now. Next Thursday is when Title 42 goes off. That's the Trump era rule that helped keep a little more control over the border. That goes away.
Yeah.
And I just heard this morning a podcast talking about busloads are loading up right now in Central America and South America to bus them up right to the border and rush the border. And so when you have that mass of humanity coming across all at once, and they are not all there for a better life per se. You know, they're not. I get it when there's if I were in South America, Central America, and I wanted a better life for my family, I get it completely. But they're not all there for that purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
And now it's coming from all over the world, China, Africa, and so on, all at once. And they're just, if you want an orderly society, an orderly nation, if you want it to function for everybody, it can't not have law and it can't not have control of its own borders.
Come on.
I mean, there has to be, a timely inflow and outflow and socialization and understanding of the new laws and the place you live and all that. But there's I believe that our international political adversaries are using this as a way to destabilize us. The same thing's happening to Europe right now too. So those who would be considered, and I guess who would that be? China seems the most organized. Is Russia involved or not? I don't know if they're involved in that. There's also talk about globalist banker entities in Europe, like the World Economic Federation. I mean, they outright declare they want a great reset, monetary reset, and so on. And I guess I don't understand this fully, but I guess the theory is that by getting a reset, they can bring about greater control of society. One thing being talked about is in the idea of the elimination of the dollar and something like that, and a bank reset, to switch entirely over to digital money.
Yeah, the Fed now.
Right. Well, if we get to that place, think about how this will change all of humanity in this respect.
Yeah.
In that if there is no more currency cash trade or anything like that, if it's all done digitally, then everything you buy, it will be fully controlled, known, and it'll be literally possible to not allow you to buy certain things.
Yeah.
If there's a desire, if you haven't behaved right for one thing or another, or not to let you have any more fuel any further than they want you to go. Things like that, that's alien to everything we've known as humanity throughout all of history. And that level of control is alarming and scary if that were to come about. But as we sit here right now, you can go out and take a few bucks and go buy something. It doesn't seem like it's here. It's not happening yet. But that is exactly what's being talked about, and talked about a lot. Defined, researched, as you mentioned, the federal government, our federal government is working on its own dollars, digitized dollars, and digitized money like that too. So we know that push is in place and it's happening.
Yeah.
Right now, this whole great reset, as I mentioned to you, has been declared, stated, a goal. They're working toward that. These are not just imaginary fears from our, in our psyche somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you hear that because I hear it all the time, man. One thing I feel like I hear a lot of this, and it seems almost childish too, because I heard it on TikTok. I see, but I really believe one of the main reasons why they want to get rid of TikTok, because of the information that can get out so fast, and is it escalated or is it dumbed down? Probably, man, but the news is so fast on TikTok now.
Well, social media is interesting. Social media at its purest is just an amplified way of people talking. It's people talking, which people have done from the beginning of human history, right?
We're doing it right now,
people
man.
telling people things.
Yes.
Right? So I get that, and I value what people in the know might be telling other people on social media. But then there's the other part, which is the potential manipulative part, where governments and organizations or criminal entities can say, well, we can use that and we can throw out memes there and throw people off. So you have disinformation and information warfare going on too, where people want to throw things off or lead people in the wrong direction. But what that does is, again, even if you didn't have any social media, as individuals, we're always responsible to take a look and analyze what we hear or what we're told from whatever source at whatever time, whether it was read in the newspapers in the old way, you always analyze and say, is this true? Could it be true? Who's saying this? And those that approach is even more important now because of all this kind of influx. And now joining that, AI generated stories and articles designed to tell you certain things in certain ways, not necessarily to give you information, but because they want to manipulate the reaction and the attitudes of society.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be aware of all of that as you take in and say, what's this for?
Yeah.
Where's it taking us? What's it, and you try and cross-reference it from other sources of information, and see if enough of them correlate and corroborate. But we can never put down our guard and just say, oh, that's got to be true because it's here or there. We can never do that from any source. You've got to cross-reference. You can't give up your own thinking and analyzing and careful thought and analysis.
I agree, man, because we live in a world. I feel like that's what makes this. I don't know, man. I keep clowning Gen Z, man, but this generation is an easily manipulated generation, man, because they're everything's so feeling based. Everything's not, if it's a fact, the facts offend, hearing you say this too, man. I mean, I believe the same way. My in-laws are real. They're prepping right now too. It's like those people are mocked now. Those type of people are like, oh, they're the conspiracy. They're the MAGA support. They make it extreme, man. And it's like how easily people are manipulated to believe that, no, you guys are living in a safe bubble. Just let us, give you what you want. And then I feel like that's the manipulating tactic, man, giving you what you want.
You talk about Gen Z, and I feel for Gen Z because they've been most exposed from the time of birth to this, more so than we were. We remember a time when it wasn't like this. So we have that frame of reference to go back on. And from which we tell them, hey, you better watch out about this. You better be careful. You better be on your guard. They have never seen that. And some of them have been brought up in this sort of make-believe Disneyland bubble where click your heels 3 times or whatever you wish, that's how it is. That's not reality that way. Sure, have dreams, work on them, make them come true. But understand, you got it. That starts with knowing where you are and where you want to get to and in the elements of those things. It's not just, say this and this what I am or this or the other. So
I agree.
And it's a difficult time when you've been brought up the way from the beginning. It's a harder challenge. It's more, I didn't face that growing up. You didn't face that. We have this time. So I do sympathize with them in that respect, but I do think they face significant challenges that way just because of this swirling informational warfare going on and
I agree.
All these sources.
Now, as your job, man, because you report the news, how often do you feel like, how come we're not talking about this on, is there like, behind the scenes? I mean, I don't want to get it to where it's too deep, you get in trouble or anybody, but I don't like, is there like behind the scenes where you're like, guys, we need to talk about this. Why aren't we pushing this?
Well, I'm not going to get in trouble to say this. Like I said, one of the things I like about the news, why I wanted to get into it, is because I believe the way it should be and the way it is that unlike acting where it's an art form, you portray it, in the news you're supposed to be dealing with truth. Okay? Now let's talk truth in different ways. There's the truth of the facts of a given incident that take place, the details, those are truths. Those are the small truths that make up what happened today. There's a fire at this house, it's at this street, they think it caused this way, witnesses say this. There's the truth of that small incident. And that's what makes up local news. Because there's nobody else doing the local news but local news organizations. The nationals do the big national stories, international stories, and that's important too. But they don't know what's happening here unless we tell them what's happening here, unless we're out there to report it. So I like being part of my community here and being part of that and letting people know what's happening here, because oftentimes based on the news that we report, somebody might say, oh, wow, that's happening. Hey, I better stay away from there, or keep my family safe that way, or I better go do this to keep my family safe. I like helping to put out the information that enables people to protect themselves, protect their families, make a voting decision, whatever. And those are the small truths, okay? Now, the big national stories that you're talking about and some of these issues too, I believe those are very important too. I find them fascinating. I'm reading about them and studying them every day. Mostly because we're supposed to focus on local news. We don't tackle those big stories. We do report nationals. We get the feeds. We'll have those and we report that. On some of the larger issues, honestly, in the content of a 1-hour newscast, there's only so much you can put in there. But I think that if we do our part right in putting forth the full and honest details, facts of local news stories, things as they unfold. Sometimes you can see the shadows of the larger truths behind them.
Yeah.
You know?
I
So if
agree.
we do what we're supposed to do and put it out there, people can see. Maybe we will report, maybe the story is an increase in crime. We talk about increase in homelessness too. That tells us something about what's happening in the economy, right? You can draw conclusions on that and say, that's going up. Why? What's going to happen? Maybe there's the job situation worse. Maybe the economic situation is worse. If a bank goes down here, we'll tell people, and it's part of the larger. So we play our part that way. We do that.
Yeah.
I like talking about this, so I'm being aware of as much as I can be, because it gives context to stories, and it gives me something that I can also maybe, if I'm fortunate enough, help explain to other people when the time comes. But I try to get that part right in terms of the details of the local stories we're tasked to do every day, hoping that in my small part of that mosaic, it helps people see the larger truths that impact our lives and our world.
Yeah. And I feel like that's from you, because I know you, man, you know, you're on it. It's one of these things, one thing I appreciate, you know, it's like because sometimes you get lost in like the reporting of the negative. It's like always, you know, it's like, yeah, it's true. And, you know, even the Bible even says, you know, hey, man, it's going to get worse. Good's going to be evil, you know, and evil's going to be called good. And, you know, you got to just keep fighting the good fight, man. Don't grow weary while doing good, you know. And so I think with what you're saying and what you're doing, man, where do you feel like how do you focus on like, hey, man, I know it's tough to, you know, keep reporting all this, you know, it's like, when do you turn the switch off to be like, you know, I'm just going to chill and not think about all this, you know, even as a believer, you know, we got to stay, you know, the 5 virgins of the oil, man, you just always got to stay ready, man. It's like,
I agree with you completely. You always have to stay ready. The switch goes off when I'm asleep, and when I'm awake, it's on, because I try to take in as much as I can and make sense of it and understand it and incorporate it and prepare. You know, what you were talking earlier about people preparing. I think now for everybody now, whether your now starts tomorrow or started 2 weeks ago or starts this minute, now is always the best time to do some preparations. Well, this is not an extreme position, although some would make it so. Even FEMA, even HHS says, make your preparations, have your 2 or 3 months in case of an emergency, because emergencies happen of any and every kind. You never know what they're going to be. So having something there so you can take care of yourself, at least for a time, reasonable time for yourself and your family, maybe help out your neighbors, is a wise thing to do. There's nothing crazy or extreme about that. And I think I would heartily encourage everybody to take that advice that's coming down from HHS and FEMA and others, as well as friends and neighbors. Put some things away, have some emergency water, food, whatever it is, so you can take care of things just in case the unexpected happens.
Well, I remember we were texting on, you know, for the podcast, and you had sent me a link for water, you know, and it's like since then, because I've seen a lot of water where plastic, I don't like drinking out of plastic anymore. I know. You know, we've stopped that. So everything we get, man, is fresh, and we, you know, alkaline or whatever Laura does, and we put salt, lemon, or, you know, it's like when it comes to stuff like that, our health, you know, because I feel like you are, you know, you're aware, you know, about the tampering that you know, I guess you would say government or people do, you know, to our food, to our water source.
And the impact on our environment, yeah.
Yes, you know, and so what are your thoughts on all that? How do you, what have you been doing to prepare? And what can be a message that somebody, in its purest form, because again, social media is so redundant. Social media is like, oh, you have to be like this. If you're not doing this, you're drinking. It's like so over, you know, whatever, over social media, I guess. But I feel like coming from you, man, you know, what is your thoughts on that? You know, because you see food shortages, you know, chickens, you know, farms.
Food prices too.
Yeah, it's like processed foods, you know, what have you done to prepare or, you know, be aware?
A few things. You talked about water and bottled water. Hard to get away from plastic for long-term storage of bottled water because there's not a whole lot of resources. It's hard to find a lot of glass bottles in their little.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that you're talking about that. I'm thinking about it myself. I've got some water filters, some good ones that I can utilize for emergencies and so on like that. I'm thinking about getting a house water filter in the near future, a whole house water filter. And I'm thinking, I know that you can buy water that's a little bit more expensive though. You can buy water that's in metallicized pouches, which you won't get this leakage of plastic and so on from like that. The inside is like I think aluminum or something.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And you can buy that. That's another kind of survival water. So that's not a bad way to do it. And I reassess what I do every so often. So I'm thinking more in terms of trying to get into some of that now too, because it's a long-term water. I think the Coast Guard uses that sort of thing.
Really?
Because it's immune to floods or anything like that, or it's always safe in that water container. It's not leaching plastic or anything like that. That's one thing. You're asking also about preparation and food. Anything you bought a couple months ago in terms of food storage is probably cheaper than what you get it for today. Mm-hmm. And it's quite possible that what you get today will be cheaper than it'll be in a month or half from now. The prices are going up in all kinds of things. There's larger scale things that have happened and are happening that leads you to believe that the prices will go up significantly. Yeah. Among those, because of the war between Ukraine and Russia, I have read that about 27 or 28 of some of the largest producers of fertilizer in the world shut down in Europe because they couldn't get a lot of the nitrogen fertilizers produced out of natural gas which they no longer get from Russia. Those are shut off there. So that's going to shut a lot of the feedstock off for a lot of the fertilizers. No fertilizers, you cut yields by half or more, at least a quarter. And so if you're growing or have about that much less food and the population is substantially what it always was, you're going to run into some shortages. Mm-hmm. You've got some environmental things. We had some crazy environmental weather issues this last year and areas that supposedly were impacted because of them, including here in the West Coast. Yeah. The floods, Lake Tulare is back and all that stuff.
I know, that's crazy.
That's going to affect what's available in the available food supply. All the more reason to have, I think 6 months to a year storage if you can't have it, if you have the room for it and can afford it. It's not a bad thing to have. When it comes to the types of food, I prefer it as natural and close to real source as possible, meaning like bags of rice, beans, things like that. Canned food, like maybe some good soups that have minimal, just natural. I like Progresso and some of the others. So I agree with you. I like to stay as natural as possible. Yeah. Food the way God made it.
I agree. And I think that's kind of really where, this society, this world has pushed away from, like you said, the way God made it, the way God intended it. There's a lot of things.
Designed us to operate on.
And it's like in a society where it's like, Christianity is the most attacked religion, man, or belief system. And, it's one of these things where it's like, you either make a stand or you don't. It's like with this show, the audience is growing, man, and people know where I stand, but it's like in life, you can't just be, and I've said this 1,000 times, you can't just be a vanilla flavored ice cream. Why? Because yes, everything goes with vanilla. Maybe a lot of people like vanilla, but eventually you got to pick a flavor, man, that somebody's going to like or not. And I think when it comes to our, especially, as believers, as followers, because I've been getting back more into my relationship with God these past years, especially coming off my sickness, man. And God really got my attention. He was such a gentleman. He wasn't one of these people, gods, or the way Christianity and God's, portrayed as, he's a judgment God. He was, I told you, man, he showed me so much love it brought me back to my full, relationship with him. It's not perfect, man, and I think this world, we're getting away from that way he said God, the way God intended it, man. And the Bible even says, man, they're going to turn from that. And God was going to turn them to their own wicked ways, and they're not going to know, And I think when it comes down to this, we are in the last days, man. And I don't live surprised. I'm not surprised. When I hear certain stories of politicians, I can't stand. It's like, you're going to meet God one day, and that's just going to be between you and God.
I can't see things going on in the world the way they are right now, seemingly getting crazier and worse by almost a month. I can't see that continuing a whole lot longer before some major comeuppance or change. Mm-hmm. I mean, things are getting, like I said, we are running into the problems with like I said, the food supply. We haven't even been impacted yet. Wait till we see how the yields come out for this spring and summer harvest season. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised what we end up coming up with. Yeah. And in the past, there's been like maybe a year's world food supply or 12 to 14 months. So we've been going off of that this last year, but there'll be a time when that's not there. Cost of fuel, a lot of this all derives too from the cost and availability of fuel, because that's what that's a major input to harvesting and producing all this food. And if it's been cut, if there's been, if the price is so high above what it's affordable, then the food's going to have to go up to match that price.
Yeah.
And what happens when people can't afford that? I mean, I'm hearing stories of the desperation growing. A lot of people not being able to meet their ends, and again, a big part of that is if they can't meet the cost of food, we're going to have civil upheaval. That worries me, that possibility. But historically, that's how it's always played out.
Yeah.
People, when they get to the point where they're hungry, they say that there's a saying that you're only 3 meals away from a revolution or something like that. When people get to that point and they feel they have nothing left, they've got to do something. There's concerns about that. So there's the preparation is important. The larger scale societal or governmental principles or actions to try and address that and try and remedy this situation are important. What would be a help right now is if they were able to somehow bring an end to that war in Ukraine and Russia. That would be a big help right there globally, not just for that region. But when you talk about faith, I will say this too. In the originally they called gospel essentially means God's story, God's tale, or the good news. They've heard that too. And I don't think there's a more important news that you can tell than that, because that's the hope behind all this. That because God's really there and on the throne, He's going to decide how this turns out, and we have reasons for optimism and hope there, despite the challenges and so on like that. And someone to go to about these things.
Come on.
Seeking that hand of protection and guidance, and I trust in that, and I do that, and lift myself and others and our community and our city and our country in prayer, and other believers too, and I trust that it's going to work out the way we were told a long time ago in that book, in the Bible, and so I'm hopeful that way. But in the meantime, we do have to be as wise as we can be, do the best we can to take care of ourselves and others, and just try and be a voice of reason and faith.
Yeah.
I'm going to say these are, I don't know if I would say these are dark times yet. They're troubling times, and they look like they could lead to darker times if things take bad turns.
Now we look at, I've said it before on here, man. I voted Trump. I was hoping Trump would win, but I look at this administration now, what they're doing. I feel like they're purposely nosediving America into the ground. And, do you think even if Trump is reelected that he can flip and turn this all around? Because there's a lot of damage that has been done, So it's like no wound has ever healed overnight, man. It's like when someone's cut, hurt, it's like, especially the way our nation has been damaged just in this past few years, it's like if Trump would be elected and, if you want to get crazy political, I mean, I don't know, you can tell me you don't want it, it's okay, but like if he comes in and things start turning around, would that be enough time to save it?
I'll say this. Yeah. Now, in the news, one limit I have is I can't be too specifically political.
Yeah, that's
I can
what I'm
certainly
saying.
Analyze this and take a look at it too. Okay. And of course, I have my own personal positions, but I will tell you this: I agree with you that I don't understand a lot of the policies of the present administration. I don't understand the taking away of Title 42 that's causing and going to make worse the situation at the border. That seems to be a fact. I don't see how Alejandro Mayorkas, the guy down at the border in charge, can say, "Oh no, there's no problem in the border. It's in control." There's no when everybody knows there is. So I don't get some of the things they're doing in these ways. I don't understand some of that. And because I don't understand it and what I see the outcome being, it doesn't seem to be the right course of action. But that's where we are. Can that change? There's always the hope that with the next election, you can change the things or bring about the change that you want to see that's not happening with the current administration. You ask about former President Trump, and with that, I know that the economic climate seemed very different when he was president.
Yeah.
I know there was talk about the lowest number ever of every minority being unemployed, and that improving, and the economic numbers were very strong. Can he do that again if he were to be elected? Maybe. He's also a very polarizing influence, though. I mean, the Democrats and the liberals who hate him really, really hate him, and he's been under continual attack from the time he ran last time throughout his whole presidential term to right now. He's on trial, to come to us. So, could he effectively get past that to lead effectively if he were elected again? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what brings together. I would say that he certainly has a very strong backing in the Republicans, Mike, and so on, but he doesn't bring along the Democrats that way. He brings along some of the independents. Can that change and will that sway? I know the minority support during his term seemed to grow quite a bit, both Hispanic as well as black support. So there seemed to be something of a unifying factor there. Can that happen? Can he do that? We have to wait and see.
Yeah.
It looked like it was doing that and moving that direction once before. Maybe that could happen again. And as you say, is there enough time for somebody new to get in and do something like that? You always got to hope there is.
Yeah.
You always got to push for the thing that you hope will bring positive change. But there's certain things happening right now. In fact, another story I read was there was new Russian attacks were happening right now, even as we're speaking, yesterday in Ukraine, significant ones, incendiary bombings of one of the areas in the cities and missile strikes. And then there's been reports that the Ukrainians were about to mount a counteroffensive. So that's a very hot war. And you may have heard last week claims from Russia that the Ukrainians tried to assassinate Putin at the Kremlin because there was some kind of drone, which there's questions about because there's video out there showing men up there up near that before that went off. So was it just like a stage thing, which happens, to make it look and give excuse for that? Or was it really an attempted assassination, which doesn't seem very strategically wise? In any event, that went in. The rhetoric has been hot. There have been some sources fearful that will be an excuse for Russia to actually use a nuke, tactical or otherwise, on them, on England. I am a little concerned right now. Well, they had that coronation today, early this morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, in England. I guess nothing happened to interrupt that. I thought, wow, that would be a target if somebody were going to go after it. But it seems okay there. But they're the situation in Ukraine and Russia keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And right now it's at its worst right now, where there are some fearful that this weekend could represent an escalation to the point of a use of a nuclear weapon. Hasn't crossed that threshold yet. Hope it doesn't. But because that's happening right now, the election in 2024 seems too far away.
Yeah.
I don't know. Things need to happen to change it now, and I don't see that happening through human means.
I know that's crazy, man. I mean, it's one of these things where it's just like, man, God, you either just come now, please, But
Amen.
What do we got to do? I feel like having this podcast, and I feel like, and this is really the direction I wanted to go, man, because I feel like coming from again, Monty Torres, there's credibility in that name, man. There's credibility in your walk, in your life. It's very evident. Even when, from my perspective, when I worked with you, man, we had nothing but good times.
Always.
Respectful, man, just fun, on camera, professional. And, but again, it's like, I want to put this stuff out there now because it's like, when certain people say it, like if there's a family member, they're speaking truth, but because it's that individual, it's like, bro, we don't like you, even if you're speaking the truth. I was that guy at one point in my life, and I feel like hearing it from you is one of these things where I feel like, man, people listening and watching, man, this is not a right or left. This is like, be aware, be open to some real facts that may hurt your feelings, that may, derive you from what you feel like your personal belief in lives are, man. Because I believe, man, in my heart of hearts, Jesus is the only way. People say you're crazy, you're this. Okay, I'm good. I'm not going to stand before God one day, man. It's like, hey, man, because you're ashamed of me, I'm ashamed of you. I don't want to hear those words. I genuinely don't, man. And I want to live that Roman 1:16 life, man. Just, I am not ashamed of the gospel, man. I'm not. And I want my life to show. I want my family and my kids to follow suit, not because I'm making them, not because I'm telling them you have to. I want them to do it because they see me living a life of, I would say action.
Jose, something that's important and that I try to incorporate in my life too is that I know God is real. I know it's true. I know prayer works because I've seen it happen, and I see it happen continually. In one of the examples that I gave you, that was just too immediate and too real not to recognize God just did that right there.
Yeah.
I mean, before I opened my eyes from the prayer, guy dressed in, why was he dressed in all white if he's a mover? I don't know. I'm not saying he was an angel or anything, but he was a human angel in that point, that he's suddenly there, and he was a professional mover, since that's exactly what I needed. And I asked for it. It was there before I didn't even know, so what I want to say is, it's not our job, yours and mine, to prove how real God is. God does that. So what I hope to do is, the things that I'm concerned about, that I'm praying about, I'll share that prayer with my family, ask them to pray with me, tell them why, and then say, let's watch what God does. So we can share in that moment of awe and appreciation and gratitude and wonder when God does it. And we can say, look what happened. And we do that routinely. And in small ways, sometimes it means something just to us and our family that we recognize, sometimes in larger ways. But we do that because it's God who glorifies himself.
Come on.
We just ask we express faith in him through the access he gives us, through redemption and the name of his son, Jesus, Yeshua. And he's faithful. And we watch that and we share that. And I look forward to opportunities to share with you things like answered prayer, like I just did, because that's a glory that's honestly reporting a glory to God that I want known and seen. So I like to pray with my family, and we do, and about on a daily basis, as well as anything special going on, to talk about some things happening, and we talk about preps, we talk about things to watch out for and to be careful for, and because that's not being either pessimistic or fearful, that's being real.
Yeah,
it's a real world. These things are happening out there. And if it hasn't touched your world yet, God bless you, great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it won't. And you got to be ready for it as much as you can.
I think when it happened to me, when I got sick, man, everyone, the message, because, you go through life, because me and you, this is our first time in a long time we've met, but I've always known if I hit you up, because you've DM'd me a few times when I was sick, and I even commented on your photos, and we just DM a couple times. You just know when people are there.
Yeah.
And when I was sick,
we pick up right from where we left off. We pick up right from where we left off.
See, that's what I'm saying. Full circle, because I believe that when God shows up, man, he pointed all to him, because when we got sick, because we all got sick, my whole family did. I was the one that only took the CVS home test. And I've heard rumors and conspiracies that they were lacing it with COVID, the Delta variant, and that's ended up what I ended up getting. Because these guys healed up in a week. My son was like, after 3 days, he's a beast. That boy's a bull. And my wife and 2 daughters, 4 or 5 days later, Laura a little bit later. But me, it killed me, man. It took me out. And for some reason, we were just ready, man. We took our health serious when they opened it up that April, 2021. Remember I was like, babe, we got to go to the gym. So every day, April to August, when I got sick, I was working out 4 or 5 days a week, eating right. And my doctor told me, man, you saved your life. He says, your body was strong enough to fight this, your lungs, your muscles. You weren't obese. And they were very blunt, man. We get a lot of fat people coming in there and dying. And if these people just take care of their health, man, this would be a wash. It'd be easy to take care of and fight off, and so I believe in that, man. We got to prepare, man, and I think with, now that we have 3 teenagers, we're very aware of what society and culture puts out there, man. And we want them to lead, even if it's just them in the front, and that's what's hard, because we live in a world where people just want to follow. They want to follow what's easy, and, Bible even says wide is, the gate to hell, but narrow, man, is the path. And so, I think when we're in this conversation, man, like I said, it came back full circle. It's, prepare. Live your life in such a way, man. Fear God, love God, man. Fear is not
first. Yes. That lay the foundation, like you do with your family. You lay the foundation, who to go, where to go. Trust in God and salvation. Know you have your salvation through the death and resurrection of His Son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. And that's where we get our strictly on faith on Him and on that. And then we can have access to the throne of grace in His name. That's what we've been told. So I believe in that completely, and I've tested it. I've put it to the test. I put it to the test regularly, and every time I put it to the test, God's faithful. I may not always understand how. It takes a while sometimes for me to see, and connect the dots and see how it all answered. Got to figure it out. It may not happen. There's a saying that God is God is rarely, never early. No, how's it go? God is rarely early, but never late. Okay. So maybe you pray about something, you think, well, I didn't see anything happen yet, but that doesn't mean it's not going to, or it won't happen, or it's happening, but you just don't see it yet. And sometimes it's instantaneous, like the example I gave you.
Yeah.
But I've always seen God lift up and act and see His hand in a situation. And when you do that, and He does, then you have something with which to further honor and glorify Him by sharing that story with others. And that's the foundation. And outside of that foundation, just doing the other things like making the preparations, taking care of yourself in the way He intended, eating food the way He gave it to us. Not overly processed, this and the other thing, but something you make at home simple, the healthful stuff like that is good. And then watching for His blessings and the unfolding of His word, which He told us what's happening. I'm telling you right now.
Go that 2-box. Go ahead, man.
Right now, we talk about this digital money and all that stuff. Well, you only have to look in the book of Revelations about being a mark about on your hand or your forehead.
Yep.
Referred to more than 2,000 years ago. Now, you can't put $1 on your hand or your forehead, right? But you can do something else. And if it gets to the point and it's digitized, that's exactly how that works out. Never before in human history could that come true like it can now. So there's no other book out there. There's nothing else out there that foretold something like that at this time. So when you see these things unfolding, you got to say, something's happening.
Come on.
And it's happening now. We're in the time.
Come on.
Yeah.
I know I see your phone blinking, man. I don't know if you have to rush or go, but
okay, this is just messages.
Yeah, but I mean, dude, we can do this all day. I mean, I agree with you, man. Just there were times where my faith has been challenged, man. But I've always remember why God's faithful.
The human part of us, we get either depressed or despondent. We're tired. These things happen like that, right? What I found most helpful is to know, like you said it earlier today too. Our feelings aren't us because they change. So we're not changeable like that. But what I found helpful is to recognize that, and we live in this world in which we live right now is a battleground world, a spiritual battleground world.
Yep.
We take the buffetings and things happen because there's an opponent out there on a spiritual level that does that to demoralize, to bring down however he can. But what I found and what helps me is that if I stand on the word in Jesus' name, I can deny it and say, no, I'm not going to feel this way. Get out. In Jesus' name, I won't feel depressed. I won't feel this. I'm going to just focus, say my prayer, trust in God, and the rest I'm not even going to think. I won't let it sit.
Come on.
In Jesus' name, get lost. I won't feel that way. If I stand up and I get mad at it and say, no, I'm not going to feel that way. Go. In Jesus' name, I won't feel that way. I'll wait till God shows up. And I can put that aside. And then something happens where I see God's hand that fixed the problem or changed it, and then then it's gone till the next challenge, the next buffeting. But we're not going to get away from that kind of buffeting every so often while we're in this world until Jesus comes again, which is not that far away.
It's not. Tell them that's your message. I mean, you said a lot, and right there, that's a good message, man. But to somebody, we'll close out like this because I know what we'll do is I'll give our last words, man. I'll do this thing where you get last word, last thoughts. Someone listening and watching this whole conversation, man, you said a lot right there, but somebody that either has been hurt by a church or somebody, or they're lost, they're confused, given this whole conversation we have, what is your message? What is your, message to them? Then to not experience a religion, not experience a church or a pastor, but experience Jesus. What's your message, man?
That is the thing, that God is real. His word in the Bible is real. And I believe many times when I make mistakes, it's because I'm not taking it literally enough. And I believe in the literalness of it. And Jesus, there's more, you've heard this before too, there's more evidence on the historicity that a man who, in later Greek translation, Jesus Christ, his name in Hebrew is Yeshua HaMashiach, lived, was crucified and died. You cannot question anything in history. There's nothing in history more proven than that, by the number of documents, by the things so that's a fact. He lived, he died on the cross, and he died for our sins. We're foretold in the Bible by the different prophecies and so on. And because of that, we have access to that throne of grace by being humble before God, by accepting and asking for that redemption through His Son, and then thereafter living in faith on that and asking in His name. Because once we do that, we get the privilege of being able to use His name in authority to deny despair, to deny any temptation, to deny depression and these things, and to stand up and then go to the throne of grace and say, Father, in Jesus' name, help me do this, help me get through this, help me heal, help this family member, help that family member, help my country, my city, all the believers. We can do these things and take an active part in what God's doing right now. We can stand up and use that name in faith. And you can see these prayers answered. You can see His hand upon your life and upon the lives of others. There's nothing more important than that. As far in this time, in this age and any age, but there's nothing more important especially than that right now. Beyond that, in faith, make what preparations you need to be able to handle just about anything you can imagine. I mean, the things beyond our imagining, we have to we trust that God will take care of. But we need to do what we can to take care of ourselves and others for the fire that may happen next door and you want to help a friend or whatever, the flood that happens in an area, you want to help somebody else out or that might affect you, the power outage, whatever, these things, there's no panic or what do you want to call it? There's nothing extreme in anticipating those things because they happen every day. They happen here, there, and everywhere. So to prepare for those things in your life and the lives of others is a good thing to do. It's a wise thing to do. And to keep an eye on what's happening in the world, because no matter how big the world is, sooner or later it seems things come back to us. They come home, they come back to us and impact us. So be as prepared as possible. But I would put prayer and faith first and foremost, talking to God every day. And staying close in that respect, listening for the guidance He may give you, and trusting, as He repeats repeatedly throughout the Bible, He is faithful. Amen. And you're here now because of that. Amen. I think I am too because of that. So.
Man, amen. I mean, y'all. We're gonna take an offering. Monty was Puerto Rican right now. We'll cash app on the bottom, man, to say this. But yeah, I feel the same way, man. It's one of these things where, I feel like my last word, man, is exactly that. Still Here podcast is more than just, again, a platform that, everyone can do because, a billion other podcasts out there, man. But to stand out, to bring a real message, man, from somebody that's real, that lives a real life, man. It's not something to where, hey, the switch is on, the camera's on, I got to put on my character. No, this is who I am. This is who you are, in real life. And it's, you get what you get, man. And, I believe integrity, man, is when no one's looking. And, I've worked my way to get back into that, man. And God is faithful, in my lowest moments, He's shown me who He was. I didn't need worship music. I didn't need a message. I didn't need lights. I didn't need a pastor. I experienced Him. And I think that's what really more solidified where I felt like I was lacking in my belief in Him, because I felt like being in a church, being in a ministry. You may have not known this, but I was a pastor at one time. And I didn't know that. Yeah. And walking away from that, I thought my identity was in my ministry and my position, man. But my identity wasn't in that. Like you said, people identifying their feelings and how they feel that moment. But my identity is in Him. And I think when I figured that out we figured that out on our own, God brought us through a lot. And I feel like that's why Still Here means so much.
You're here at this time for a reason. And this is a very challenging time. But if God put you here at this time and keeps you here, it's to do what He wants you to do. And to be the help you can be to your family, to your friends, the witness you can be. Amen. And you're doing that with this podcast.
Amen. You guys, so, I mean, coming down to it, what a way to kick off season 4, episode 1 with my good friend, Monty Torres. I mean, are you on social media? Because you have your pages?
I am. Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I do have Instagram and I check it. I just don't do it a lot because I don't really understand it. I should probably talk to you about that.
Yeah.
And get some tips.
Follow me first and I'll tag you because I'm going to make clips and I'll send you a bunch of clips, man, that I know, to get for, just really, just your
TikTok
message.
Too. I'm on there. I just don't really know how to use it.
You don't do the dances or the...
Not so much, yeah.
But I'll tag you. I'll look you up. Follow the show, man. And, because you said a lot of awesome stuff, really, man, really encouraging, man. It's not so much, again, we picked a side, man. We just really, the Bible says, man, you'll know the truth. You know, and truth will set you free. You know, when you accept, and sometimes, man, that truth hurts. You know, and the reality is like, how do you learn, man? But with just growing pains. My son's 13, growing still, man. His legs hurt, but it's gonna be, man. That boy's gonna be a beast.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you get past those moments of those
Like
tough,
his dad.
yeah, let's go. You know, and again, we grow, man. So I want to say thank you for your time on this Saturday. You know, I'll definitely, man, we need to do a part 2 if you're feeling some kind of way. If you want to start, I feel like you need to start your own. I feel like the news, honestly, in my opinion, is this, you know, news is still news, man. People will watch, especially local news, but I feel like they need to switch it up into a podcast form.
I think you're right.
They do.
I mean, things are changing so fast that, and I could see that. I just don't know exactly how to do these things. I'm open to learning, just like I learned to be a producer not that long ago. I'm open to learning. Man. I just got to figure out how to do it, and what I need to do, and how to make it work. But I'm open to all these possibilities. So if that's something maybe we can talk about that. You know, and
I'm down.
Figure that out.
Yeah, and we'll do something else, because I have a friend of mine who has a podcast I'm starting out with, and I'm actually in the works of starting another podcast. You know, because again, this stuff, I mean, it's drag and drop, ready to go, man. I can take it from that board there, drop it on a timeline. I can put this out like now.
That is an awesome setup.
Yeah, and so it's insane how I mean, God's good, man, and so. But I definitely want to partner with you in some way. And again, man, maybe talk to the head honchos at KMPH.
You know, they probably go for it.
They need to, man, because again, long gone are the days of my in-laws. They just canceled their Dish network.
You know what?
TV.
That's been happening for a while now. A lot more people are doing it. Save the cost of money. You know, you got streaming and other stuff going on. So I get that. But the world is changing fast. It's in the throes of changing right now, and there's going to be a lot more changes even before the end of this year. Yeah. So I agree with you, and it's good to adapt and learn and grow like that. So I'd be happy to learn from you and see how you're doing some of this stuff and make it happen.
I got you, man. So you guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. You know, subscribe to our YouTube page. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go check out our other podcasts, man. We've had a lot of awesome guests. You'll start seeing the evolution of Jose from, you know, being immature and, you know, bitter to where I'm at now, man. Life's a process. You know, so keep growing, keep doing your thing. I love you guys. Stay tuned for episode 2, man. Season 4 is off to a good start. We'll see you guys soon.
God bless.